August 13th, 1944. Normandy, France. The air hums with the low growl of distant engines. Private James Rourke of the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry presses himself into the mud of a hedgerow. The smell of cordite and churned soil thick in the air. To his left, a column of Sherman tanks from the 27th Armored Regiment. The Sherbrooke Fusiliers grind forward, their treads chewing the damp earth as smoke from burning villages rolls across the valley. The Canadians are advancing east towards Saint-Lambert-sur-Dives. And at the heart of that advance lies a nameless rise on the map. Hill 195. To the men of the 2nd Canadian Infantry Division, Hill 195 is more than a contour line. It's the last high ground overlooking the German escape route through the Falaise Gap. Hold this hill, and they trap thousands of enemy troops retreating from Normandy. Lose it, and the enemy slips away to fight again. Rourke, eyes front. "Keep that Bren ready," barks Sergeant Ed McLean, crouching beside him. The Canadians move in cautious bounds through wheat fields turned to stubble and ash. Every shadow could hide a sniper. Every ridge a tank gunner watching for movement. The air carries the mechanical rhythm of artillery. Thunder from Canadian 25-pounders pounding unseen targets ahead. By nightfall, they reach the base of Hill 195. Orders come down from Brigade, the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, and the Essex Scottish will assault the height at dawn. It's a key to closing the Falaise Pocket, but they all know what that means. The Germans will not let it go quietly. The night brings no peace. The men digs in shallow scrapes, the clang of entrenching tools ringing faintly in the darkness. Above them, the hill looms black against the sky, occasionally lit by flashes of distant flares. Somewhere beyond, Panzer crews from the 12th SS Hitler-Jugend Division prepare their counterattack. Rourke fumbles with a tin of cold rations, his hands shaking from fatigue more than fear. He thinks of home, of Hamilton's steel mills glowing in the night, of his mother's radio whispering the war news. But now, his world is this muddy field. His lifeline, the rifle resting across his knees. Before dawn, the artillery begins again. Hundreds of guns open up in unison. The horizon blazes white, and the earth quakes under the barrage. The Canadians move, shadows against fire, climbing the hill through smoke and thunder. Shells burst overhead, showering them with dirt and leaves. One soldier stumbles, another shouts for a stretcher bearer. Still they move. Near the crest, they meet the first machine gun nest. Sergeant McLean signals, and Rourke drops prone, sighting his Bren gun. 2 bursts, sharp, controlled, and the German weapon falls silent. The section moves forward, hearts hammering, every step clawed from the hill's torn soil. By midday, they hold the summit. Hill 195 belongs to Canada, but below, the enemy gathers. The rumble of tanks carries on the wind. The men glance toward the valley and see them, dark shapes moving through smoke, treads glinting in the sun, tigers, panthers, the iron fist of the Wehrmacht rolling straight for them. McLean lowers his binoculars. "They're coming back for it," he mutters. "And they're bringing everything they've got." The Canadians dig in. Engineers scramble to lay mines along the approaches. Artillery observers set up their scopes, radios crackling with static. Every gun barrel points downhill. Every finger tightens on a trigger. The ridge that had been just a line on a map is now the hinge of history. As the first shells fall around them, Rourke whispers a single thought that echoes through every foxhole on the hill. We hold, or they break through. Morning breaks gray and smoky over Hill 195. The fog carries the scent of fuel and wet grass, clinging to everything like sweat. Down in the valley, through the mist, the silhouettes of Panzers begin to materialize. Dark hulks moving with mechanical precision, flanked by infantry in mottled camouflage. Private Rourke wipes grime from his eyes and peers through the sight of his Bren gun. They're coming, he mutters, more to himself than anyone else. Sergeant McLean crawls along the trench line, slapping shoulders as he goes. Hold your fire till they're in range. We make every round count. The first German shells hit moments later. Earth and shrapnel erupt skyward, raining back down on the ridge like hail. The Canadians hunker low, their trenches barely deeper than the length of a bayonet. The bombardment lasts minutes, or maybe it's hours. Time loses meaning when the sky itself is trying to kill you. Then comes the grinding roar of tank engines. Panthers emerge through the haze, their 75mm guns scanning the slopes. One halts, turret turning with the slow menace of a predator. "Target, front!" shouts Corporal Hughes, calling for the Sherman positioned behind the line. The tank crew, boys from Quebec City, react instantly. The 75mm cannon barks once, the recoil rocking the vehicle. The shot glances off the Panther's glacis plate. A miss, the Panther fires back. The Canadian Sherman vanishes in a burst of flame and black smoke. "Christ almighty," Rourke whispers, ducking as debris rains down. McLean's voice cuts through the chaos. "Artillery! Get me artillery now!" Up on the hilltop, Lieutenant William Bill Johnston, the forward observer from the 4th Field Regiment, presses his radio handset against his ear, straining to hear through static. "Target bearing 190, range 800 meters, armor column, fire for effect." The reply comes a heartbeat later. "Roger. Fire mission, danger close." Within moments, the valley lights up again. But this time, it's the Canadian guns answering. Shells scream overhead, landing among the German armor with deadly accuracy. One Panther takes a direct hit, turret flipping off like a tin lid. Another lurches to a halt, its crew scrambling out before being cut down by rifle fire. For a brief moment, the hill seems to hold. The Germans pull back under the storm of shrapnel, regrouping beyond the tree line. The men on the crest cheer weakly, breathless with exhaustion and disbelief. But everyone knows this is just the beginning. McLean crawls up beside Rourke. "You did good, kid," he says, clapping him on the shoulder. "But they'll be back. They always come back." As dusk falls, the Canadians count their dead. The stretcher bearers work silently, faces ghostly in the dim light. The medics move between shell holes that now serve as makeshift aid posts. Every casualty feels heavier because they all know the truth. Hill 195 cannot be abandoned. In the valley, German flares rise again. Green, red, white. Painting the night sky with eerie brilliance, the Canadians brace for another assault. Somewhere in the darkness, the guttural revving of engines begins anew. Rourke tightens the strap on his helmet and checks his ammunition. The earth beneath him vibrates with the weight of advancing armor. "Round 2, he mutters. And then, like a thunderclap, the second wave begins. August 14th, 1944. Just past midnight. The night on Hill 195. Burns in flashes of white and red. The horizon blinks like a broken circuit, each flicker marking another artillery blast. Rain begins to fall, soft at first, then driving, drumming on helmets and rifles. The mud thickens, sucking at boots, swallowing cartridge casings, burying the wounded where they lay. From the valley below, the second wave comes. A mixed force of SS infantry and panzers. Their boots and treads churn the sodden earth, bayonets glinting under the flare light. The Canadians, sleepless and caked in grime, crouch behind sandbags that have become little more than wet mounds. Private Rourke peers through the darkness, finger resting on the Bren's trigger. The faint metallic squeal of tank treads carries on the wind. "I hear them," he says quietly. Sergeant McLean nods without looking up. "Wait till you see the whites of their..." The rest of his sentence is lost to the roar of engines and gunfire. The German assault crashes against the hill like a wave. Tracers streak the night, painting red arcs through rain and smoke. Mortar shells burst overhead, showering the trenches with dirt and shrapnel. At the center of the line, Lieutenant Johnston's radio crackles again. Fire mission, Hill 195 under heavy armor attack. Immediate support, over. Static hisses back. Then the calm voice of the artillery command replies, "Stand by. Guns are hot." Moments later, the entire sky erupts. The 25-pounders of the Royal Canadian Artillery open up again, hammering the slopes below with precision fire. The Canadians can feel the concussions in their chests, the sound of salvation. Through the inferno, shapes emerge. SS Grenadiers, faces smeared with soot, charge uphill shouting guttural curses. Rourke squeezes the trigger, the Bren's barrel flashing gold in the dark. Each burst cuts down figures that stumble and vanish into the smoke. His shoulder aches, his ears ring, but he keeps firing until the magazine runs dry. To his left, Corporal Hughes hurls a grenade toward the advancing infantry. It arcs through the air, lands behind a Panzer, and detonates with a crack that echoes across the valley. A jet of flame bursts from the tank's rear, ammunition cooking off inside. "Good throw," someone shouts, but the words are drowned out as another tank crests the hill. Gun turning toward their position. For a split second, everyone freezes. Then, from somewhere behind, a 6-pounder anti-tank gun fires. The shell slams into the Panzer's side armor, blowing it open in a cascade of sparks and smoke. The hilltop erupts in cheers, hoarse, exhausted, defiant. By 3 a.m., the German assault begins to falter. The attackers withdraw into the valley, leaving behind burning wrecks and the groans of the dying. The rain still falls, hissing on smoldering metal. McLean slumps against a shattered log, cigarette trembling between his fingers. "They threw half a division at us," he mutters. "And we're still here." Rourke stares into the darkness, his eyes hollow but steady. Below, the valley glows orange with burning fuel and the flashes of sporadic gunfire. He knows they'll attack again when the sun rises, but for now, for this one night, Hill 195 is still in Canadian hands. August 15th, 1944. Dawn. The rain has stopped, but the world still feels drowned. Smoke drifts lazily across the slope of Hill 195, curling around blackened craters and the twisted hulks of tanks. The air smells of diesel, cordite, and death. Private Rourke wakes with a start, his back pressed to the cold mud wall of his trench. For a moment, he forgets where he is. Then the sound of distant machine guns reminds him. The war hasn't ended. Not yet. Across the line, stretcher bearers move quietly between the wounded. The cries are fewer now, not because the pain has eased, but because the men are simply too tired to make a sound. Sergeant McLean walks with a limp, his uniform torn and spattered with dried blood. "Report to Lieutenant Johnston," he tells Rourke. "We're regrouping. Germans pulled back, but intelligence says they're reforming near Saint-Lambert." Rourke climbs from the trench, the mud clinging to his legs like glue. The sight that greets him steals his breath. A graveyard of machines. Dozens of German tanks lie wrecked along the approaches, their armor scorched and pierced. Some still smolder, their turrets blown clear. In one open hatch, a blackened hand dangles limp against the steel. Beside him, a gunner from the Essex Scottish mutters, "Never thought I'd see a tiger burn." Rourke doesn't answer. He's staring down the valley, where the sun rises red through the haze. It glints off the shattered glass of tank periscopes and the pools of water filling shell holes. For a moment, the battlefield looks almost peaceful, like a painting of hell trying to remember heaven. By mid-morning, reinforcements arrive. More infantry, more ammunition, and the heavy guns of the 3rd Division setting up to cover the sector. Lieutenant Johnston gathers the men near a burned-out Sherman. His voice is hoarse but steady. The Germans won't quit. They need that gap to escape. And our job. He glances toward the hilltop to make sure they never do. The men nod silently. No speeches, no bravado, just the weary acceptance of soldiers who know what's coming. At noon, the first counter-shelling begins again. The Germans are desperate. Their artillery reaches blindly for the hill, pounding it with everything left in their arsenal. The Canadians crouch low, waiting it out, trusting their gunners to answer. And they do, methodically, ruthlessly. The 25-pounders fire until their barrels glow red, walking the shells down the valley like a scythe through wheat. Rourke and McLean take turns on the Bren gun, trading positions to stay alert. Between volleys, McLean looks out toward the distant columns of smoke. "You ever think about home?" he asks quietly. Rourke nods. "Every time I blink." McLean chuckles, then winces as pain grips his side. "Then blink fast, kid. We'll need our eyes open before the next round." As the day drags on, reports begin filtering in. The German pocket is collapsing. South African armor has linked up with the Poles at Chambois. The encirclement is almost complete. Hill 195 has held long enough for the trap to close. Still, the fighting doesn't stop. Not here. Not yet. Late in the afternoon, another wave of Panzers appears on the horizon. Smaller, fewer, but still deadly. They come not to win, but to escape. Johnston orders the guns to fire again. The ridge shakes with the final barrage. Smoke covers everything. When it clears, the German armor is gone. Or burning. The road through the Falaise Gap lies littered with the wreckage of the retreat. Rourke lowers his rifle. His hands are trembling, but not from fear. It's the release. The sudden silence after days of chaos. Around him, the men stare out across the valley, realizing what they've done. The German army in Normandy is finished. McLean pulls a cigarette from a crumpled pack, lights it with shaking fingers, and exhales slowly. "We held it," he says, voice rough with disbelief. "Bloody hell. We actually held it." Rourke looks out over the blackened hill and the bodies scattered across it. "Yeah," he murmurs, "but the hill held us too." The wind shifts, carrying away the last traces of smoke toward the east, toward Germany. Hill 195 remains in Canadian hands. The Falaise Pocket is closed. The war, for now, moves on.